Good morning. Well, we always think that the best interests of the people are always with the governments. That the governments always try to listen to us and to redress our issues with concern. Possibly, yes, many do. Some do not. And some do not because they are incapable of understanding, or their understanding and comprehension has been vitiated. And as I always say, sometimes the intentions are very good, but the homework has not been done. The recent proposal, quite recent, even discussed yesterday by the Prime Minister and his cabinet, is to have a referendum on the election system. There has been a lot of hue and cry, and many parties, including NDP, Green, and a host of small parties, have been saying that the first past the ballot is not a representation. There has been instances when the people getting just 30% of the votes and 20% of the votes have been declared elected because of a large number of candidates who took the votes away, and they were not cast in the favor of the winning candidate, but because the votes has been fragmented, the person with the maximum votes won, though he does not represent the majority. And as a matter of fact, majority has been disenfranchised. Harper government had about 36% all the time. The present government also has about 36%, not 50 plus 1. 50% plus 1, no. So they say this is unrepresented. This is the negation of the very concept of democracy. Democracy means that 50% plus 1 should be deemed a majority. And anybody getting less than that does not represent the majority. Well, there is a kernel of truth in that. So they have been thinking of the proportional representation. And now comes a call for representation, for a referendum, find out the wishes of the people. Now there are two issues involved. One is the very concept of proportional representation, and the second is the concept of referendum. I shall first take up the case of referendum because it's a very small issue. Can you always trust people to understand the intricacies of things? I remember in India we had a constituent assembly which worked for 3 years and then came up with one of the best constitutions ever written. Right or wrong, there's something different. But it's presumed that it is one of the best constitutions ever written and quite representative of people. Do you expect people to understand the nuances of the proportional representation vis-a-vis first past the post? And I shall come to the nuances later on, but then first. The example of Brexit recently in England has shown how emotions override the right process of thinking. How people are emotionally agitated given a representation of the facts which may not be there and given false hopes. And the result is that the referendum might result in something which is exactly opposite of what is desired or what is the reality. Well, you can say it's democracy, and then democracy, the best way is to find the judgment of the people. But to find the judgment of the people, the best thing is first to represent the complete picture to the people. Have we prepared a checklist showing the benefits and merits along with the demerits and baneful, harmful effects of proportional representation vis-a-vis first past the post. You would find we have not. We have been very emotive, very passionate about saying, no, these elections are not representative of the real will of the people. Granted. Would proportional representation be? If we look at the history of the proportional representation, we find that they are bad, equally bad, and sometimes even worse than the first past the post. Now, what do people want? They want a country to be administered properly. As Pope said, whatever is best, administered is best. You might say then dictatorship should be there, but then no, self-government is no substitute for good government. So democracy has got to be there. That's a given. Then do we want a government which spends more, which is spendthrift, or which is concerned with the value of the people? History has shown that the governments which are weak and not have a majority are usually more spendthrift because they want to cater to all the interests so as to perpetuate and strengthen their hold on the people. And proportional representation governments are by its very nature weak governments. They are not majority governments. In a period of 15 years, from 2000 to 2015, in the countries having proportional representation, the number of elections has been much more than in the countries having system of first past the poll. Look at Italy. Every 6 months we change the government, sudden change in the government. Look at Sweden. Look at Norway. Look at Israel. Now what happens is that in proportional representation, you elect a vote for the party and the party prepares the list and the people are ticked off from that. So every party and other more parties mushroom hoping, okay, maybe we get 2 seats, maybe we get 3 seats, maybe we get 5 seats. So we have seen over the ages that the number of parties has increased. While in first past the post, the parties usually are 2 or 3, as in even in Canada, basically there are 3 parties. And in the countries where proportional representation is there are as many as 17 to 20 parties. Look at Italy. So the result is then that coalitions take place, the alignments take place, and then a common minimum program is formed. You see, it's common minimum program is that means nothing. Just carry on. We saw that arrangement in India, in Janata government. We have seen that in Italy. We have seen that in many other countries. So A, the government is weak. Does not have a definite program and it changes. Secondly, it is more spendthrift. It tries to cater to the interest of all. And when interest of all is fine, but when it wants to ensure that the different groups, pressure groups are satisfied, then the problem comes up. We have seen that the governments in countries having proportional representation normally spend 6% more of their GDP on wasteful expenditure than in the first past the post countries, because then there's strength. Now, most important, we say that these countries having first past the post are not representative. Okay, look at a very, very puzzling phenomena. Here, when you go and cast your vote, you know whom you are voting for, you know your MP. X knows that he is going to vote for Y, and the Y becomes an MP. Wherever an issue is, he can rush to the MP and ask for his help. Now, when you are voting in proportional representation, you are not voting for one MP. You are voting for a list. Each party prepares this list, and you say, okay, list A, list B, list C, list D. And then the party selects the MPs. You know the list has an order of priorities. Say in the proportional representation, a party gets 6 MPs, so the top 6 would be elected MPs. And the MP whom you want may not be there in that list, because that is according to the priority of the party leaders. So, you don't have an MP. MP who represents you is a person who may not be your choice. And then when you go there, the MP also knows that it's not your vote which caused him to be elected. He is elected because he is high up in the estimation of the party. So one party might get 20 MPs, top 20, other gets 6 MPs, top 6, like that, And then the list system continues. With the result that the situation comes and then you start running from pillar to post, not knowing which MP to approach. This disconnect between the electors and the elected is a very negation of democracy. Do you want that? And if you want that, then okay, I accept it. But then, look at the other aspect. Coalition governments are the common program-based governments are by nature weak. As I said so, you'll be spending more money or wasting more money. Your taxes would rise. Your work would not be done. There'll be no connect between you and your MPs. How would your voice be heard in the corridors of power? You would in fact be losing a major hold. And yet, we creep around and say that the proportional representation is the better way. Do you know that in France, where the proportional representation takes place, the governments have changed at the drop of a hat? Italy, everybody knows. Now, these countries, apart from being politically weak, also become economically weak. Because again, as I said, they become spendthrift. They are liberal with spending, but they are not liberal with looking after the real needs of the people. They give you temporary solace for band-aid solutions, because the real solutions need to take harsh decisions. And harsh decisions can never be taken when 3, 4, 5 parties with conflicting aims join hands just for the sake of power. So do you want that system? We have already said that the referendum is no way of deciding the subtleties of system. Now, if these facts were told to the people, would they vote for the proportional representation? They would not. But the parties, the small parties especially, would definitely not be interested in revealing the real facts. And you would see, today there are 3 parties. The day the proportional representation comes up, there will be maybe 30 parties. Well, 30 might be going to an extreme, but you can be sure at least 10 to 12 parties would be there. Officially, even now, there are 15 parties. There is something different that out of the 15, one has 2 members and the rest has none. So basically only 3 you are having: Conservatives, Liberals, and the Green Party. And then you might have green and blue and black and white and yellow, ultra-conservatives and ultra-liberals and in-betweens, and name it and you will have it. The plethora parties, as again we have seen in India, there are as many parties as there are provinces, apart from 4 or 5 pan-India parties. If the proportional representation was there, you would be having a change of the government every 6 months, as happened between the period of 1977 to 1980. We had 6 governments. That being the situation, there is a need for people to understand the subtle nuances. B, there is a need to educate the people. C, there is a need to properly understand and comprehend the intricacies of the system. And then there is a need to take decision. No system in the world is ever perfect. But if a system is not perfect, doesn't mean that throw the system out, try to reform it. There can be different modifications, but simply throwing out the first past the post is like throwing the water along with the baby after giving the baby the bath. The whole system of election should be geared to ensure that the representation is proper and of the maximum number of people. That's given. But it should also be ensured that there is no decimation of the values or of the fiduciary responsibility of the elected government. It should also be ensured that the primary function of the government is not to cater to the wills and the whims of the people, but to manage them. It's a leadership issue. I remember very well that many times the leaders take decisions which are unpopular. And at that time, people deride them. People criticize them. People condemn them. And after a lapse of time, those very people who have condemned them say, well, the decision was right. And those politicians then become the statesmen and the beacon light of the country and the nation. The present leadership in Canada is possibly more motivated by show than by the reality. I'm not saying they don't understand it. They do understand, most of them. They are sensible people. But they want to find out the ways to perpetuate their rule. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody wants to perpetuate their rule, but don't perpetuate at the cost of the values. And want to do something? Do it. But first be sure what you're doing is in the larger interest of the country and not a sheer demagoguery. At present, the way it's being done, the concept, and the way it's going to be implemented is sheer demagoguery, nothing short of deceiving people, nothing short of leading people and getting all the accolades and also getting the time to rule. There's a time for you to think. Do you want weak governments? Do you want perpetual elections? Do you want wasteful governments? Do you want proper representation? Do you want to have a connect with your MPs? If yes, then see that the devious machinations of the political authorities do not lead you astray. Take action, think about it, lest it be too late. My purpose is to make you aware of the realities. At least there should be somebody to advise you, to inform you without any interest. And my only interest is my nation, my country and you. Have a great day.